AJ will fight, and has proven he will fight absolutely anyone. And you've probably got 12 months more of excitement from one of the most entertaining, but one of the most important figures potentially ever.
Joey Mills here for Sportsman Boxing. I am joined by Matchroom Chairman Eddie Hearn. Now, Eddie, first of all, I wanted to ask you, you're surrounded when I see you at press conferences by people asking what I assume are a lot of the same questions. So I'm going to open with this one. What do you want to talk about? What is the question that you always wish someone would ask Eddie Hearn?
I don't know. I quite like normal questions, like just questions about, what I get up to, what I like to eat, obviously I'm quite into the training and the preparation and I don't know, just like general thoughts of life really, rather than when's AJ going to fight Fury? You get that, or, what's the date of the Conor Benn Chris Eubank fight, So I don't know. Obviously, I am a boxing promoter, so my job is to answer questions on boxing. But, to do 30 of them every day can get a little repetitive.
So, when's AJ going to fight Fury? No,
yeah,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
The answer is when he comes out of retirement.
But just on that, you're on the road constantly, all over the world. You're always on. I notice during the press conferences, you're always right there on your game for everything. And you mentioned training there and preparation. How do you maintain that? And how do you maintain the travel lifestyle while sort of keeping yourself healthy, keeping yourself mentally well as well? What's it like maintaining that lifestyle?
Yeah, firstly, I'm very lucky to do something that I love. I think if you can ever find something that you have a passion for doing or a job that you enjoy doing, it's hugely different to one that you don't enjoy and one that you might be stuck in, one in which you're not motivated to be at every day. I couldn't actually think of anything worse in that respect. That's tough, that's life, and sometimes you got to do what you got to do anyway. But for me, the fitness stuff and the health kind of stuff is two-pronged. The first one is for actual health, like as in, I've got a history of heart failure and disease in the family. My dad had a heart attack at, I think, 50. His dad, my granddad, died at 45. His dad, my great-granddad, died at 44. So in that respect, wasn't really looking very good for me. And I'm 6'5", and I was overweight, stressed to the eyeballs, traveling every week, and kind of felt a bit shit, really. So just in that respect, I thought, if you don't make a change, you're going to die or you're going to have a heart attack, so you better do something. And it may still come, but the idea is always to prolong it. And then the other prong is performance and actually preparation and having an edge on people. It doesn't matter what you do. If you're physically in better condition, that means you're mentally in better condition as well. And it means you're going to be better at what you do. So life is about getting an edge. And I know that if I'm training and I'm keeping myself well, I'm going to perform better. Same as if you're a fighter, same as if you're a presenter, same as if you work in a library. It doesn't really matter. You're fitter, you're better, your performance will be better. And, so I look at it like, being, like you said, on and on point. I can sometimes, or in the past, might have been appeared to be on, but I was knackered and I was, you could be miserable and you could be lethargic. And, I just feel like the training just allows me to work harder, really, and fly here and there and not knock the conkers out of me for 2 weeks when I get back from Vegas or Australia or Dubai or Saudi. Go straight to work and keep on going. And I think one of the biggest mistakes you can make in life is just to stop or to have too much time on your hands, because when you're busy all the time, people say, oh, you don't get a chance to, but I don't, I'll never sit down and reflect on life and, start having all these negative thoughts, and because I'm not sitting on the sofa for 3 hours watching Love Island. Do you know what I mean? I haven't got time. So yeah, keeping yourself busy, I think is key as well.
And to segue into the boxing question, someone who has been keeping himself very busy, Jack Catterall, you match this man very tough. After the Josh Taylor defeat that I think a lot of people viewed Jack as the true world champion coming out of that. I mean, the names that he's fought after that, Darragh Foley, Jorge Linares, Regis Prograis, Josh again, and now Arnold Barboza. That could read like a list of title defences. And I just wondered, what is the thinking and the drive behind matching Jack against the best fighters in the world every time out?
Like for me as a promoter, sometimes I get stick because I'll get our guys beat, yeah? And then sometimes you get stick because it's not a competitive fight. It's like, well, which one do you want? Like, you can't have a go at me when our fighters lose. And I'm aggressive as a matchmaker and as a promoter, because don't forget, I'm like a customer, right? Although I'm putting on the show, I'm still like you, or like the bloke or the woman in Co-op on Saturday who's paid for a ticket. I want the same enjoyment. I don't want to sit there and watch a shit fight. And also, what makes it worse is I'm paying for the fight, right? So hopefully we can make some money out of the show. But if not, the bill's on me. If I go to a restaurant and I'm fronting the bill, the food better be good, right? So when I sit down and watch the boxing, that better be good. The product better be good. And I love working with fighters who are up for challenges, not looking to protect the O, or, you know, the O that should exist in Jack Catterall's case, but actually believe in themselves. And if you start, like Jack Catterall, in my opinion, has now grown into one of Britain's top pound for pound fighters. And he's done that by being in great fights. And, you know, like looking back on Josh Taylor 1, everyone knows Jack Catterall should be the undisputed world champion. And like you said, the resume reads like a really good run of defences from a champion. But he's not even a champion. He's just a contender. And I think this fight, which is for the interim world championship, may end up moulding him into a world champion, and no one would deserve it more. And it's a very tough fight against Barboza, who's 31-0. And, you know, it's number 1 against number 2 in the division outside of the champions.
And you mentioned the interim title there. It's the WBO interim on the line. Obviously, the main title held by Teofimo Lopez. I know if I was sat here with Jack, he would probably say, I can't look past Saturday night, but you're a promoter. You have to have a longer term view of things. Is Teofimo the play after this?
Yeah, in an ideal world, because, you know, he's one of the biggest names in the division. He's champion as well. So you always want to chase those big fights. But any fight that's going to give Jack Catterall the title of world champion, you know, it would mean a lot, because he's done more than enough to cement himself as world champion. And very, 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 very nice man, you know. And you saw our Mr. Boring promo recently, which I thought was fantastic. The reality is Jackie's not boring, especially in the ring. He's just a normal bloke. But we play off the fact that he's not going to be turning up wearing, you know, £100,000 worth of chains around his neck and swagging about with an attitude. He's just a real lovely family man from Chorley that's dedicated his life to the sport, and he's slicing his way through the entire division.
I promised I wouldn't bring up AJ against Fury. I'm not going to. But I did want to ask about Anthony Joshua in a more general sense. I wonder, have you ever had conversations down the years, maybe particularly in light of the Dubois defeat? Have you ever turned around to Anthony and said, you know, you've done enough, multiple-time world champion, maybe it's time to walk away? Does retirement ever come up in your conversations with AJ?
Never yet. And there will come the time. I mean, those kind of conversations really come from behind the scenes of how someone's performing in camp. Like in a training camp, in hard spars, if you haven't got it anymore, it will be apparent. Do you know what I mean? Like the injuries will start getting a little bit worse. You may get hurt in sparring against someone you shouldn't be getting hurt against. You're not sharp. And when that moment comes, that is when the team, you know, Ben Davison, Hearn, you know, Fred 258, everyone will say to me, AJ's not looking good, you know, in camp. And that is probably the moment where I will turn down, have a conversation with him and sit down and go, mate, we don't want to go on too long, right? For Daniel Dubois, the camp was great, right? Super sharp. We were really confident going into that fight. We were coming off 4 good wins, 2 really good wins. And like we thought we'd win. We knew how dangerous the fight was. So comes out, has a terrible start, gets caught, never really recovers, comes back into the fight a little bit and gets chinned. No problem. If camp would have gone really poorly and we would have been going into that fight going, not sure about this, I think that conversation might have been brought forward. But now feels good, right? Got all his health looked at, checked, a few injuries, all sorted. Now he goes back into camp. Now in this camp, maybe the performance starts to decline a little bit. Do you know what I mean? So it's fight by fight. The end is near for AJ. And it's somewhere between, in my opinion, 2 and, I don't know, 3 or 4 fights. That's it. This could be his last year in boxing. Who knows? I mean, certainly another defeat, I think, would signal the end. But at the same time, you know, you need the mix. AJ's the boss. It makes me laugh. You know, you hear people like, I don't know, Johnny Nelson, you know, Talk Sport, wherever it is. Oh, Eddie Hearn. I heard Ben Shalom. Eddie Hearn doesn't want this fight. It's absolutely nothing to do with me who AJ fights. People might think that's not true. The only thing I will ever do is put my advice into the pot with 6 other people. Ben Davison, 258, you know, I don't know, it could be his family, like whoever. And AJ will take all that information on board and make his own decision. So right now, because Tyson Fury's retired, so put him to the side for 1 second, the number one choice for AJ is to fight for the world heavyweight title. That's really like 99% of what he wants to do. And if that's Daniel Dubois, no problem. And if it's Joe Parker, no problem. But like, for people to say, Eddie Hearn, no, he won't allow that. Do you know what I mean? If AJ turns around and says, that's what I want, that's what I'm doing, it's done. It's not me going, mate, you can't fight Dubois. I mean, do you really think that having fought, you know, some people say that, you know, he should never have fought Alexander Usyk, AJ, right? What are you talking about?
You want to fight the best.
It's your job. He's the mandatory. What do you want to give your belt up and have all that criticism that you ducked Alexander Usyk and you vacated your belt to do it? He went and fought him, and then after that, he got well beat in the first fight, and then after that, we had a rematch clause, and he went, I'm rematching him, and I went, all right then, and everyone went, don't rematch Usyk, whatever you do. And he done much better in the second fight. Didn't win, but, you know, it was very competitive. So it's up to him. Same with Andy Ruiz. When he got beat by Andy Ruiz, don't go straight into the Andy Ruiz rematch after getting stopped. You need to rebuild. AJ, what do you want to do? Rematch Andy Ruiz. Okay. So it's like Martin Bakole. Oh, Eddie Hearn won't let him fight Martin Bakole. Shut up, you plonkers. Of course I'll let him fight Martin Bakole. Who's Martin Bakole? What do you think he is? The second coming of George Foreman? Drop me out. He lost to Michael Hunter at York Hall. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, he's a good heavyweight, but at this stage in a career, my advice is based around the legacy, of course, the financials. I'm not going to let AJ take a tough fight for terrible money, but he's not driven by money, especially at this stage in his career. But I'd rather him fight for the world championship. So what would I prefer? Dubois, Parker winner, or Martin Bakole? Of course, Dubois, Parker winner. He's got a world heavyweight championship. And if Bakole had a world heavyweight championship, it would be him. So AJ will fight, and has proven he will fight absolutely anyone. And you've probably got 12 months more of excitement from one of the most entertaining, but one of the most important figures potentially ever in British boxing, in Anthony Joshua. Completely changed the face of the sport.
And I wanted to ask about, you mentioned before it again, we know the date. I'm not going to ask you when, where, or what you predict for Benn versus Eubank. I wanted to take a broader view of that one as well. I think it's interesting, obviously, the story with those two. It is the fathers that have sort of linked them together. I think that is 90% of why this fight is happening. I wonder, do you view it as a bit of an inversion of the original Benn-Eubank rivalry, in that I think a lot of people are perhaps unfairly viewing Conor as the villain going into this one because of what happened last time out? Do you think that's the case? Do you think that is how people regard this fight?
I think in boxing, like, I think the hardcore boxing fans are definitely viewing him as the villain. I mean, it's quite a toxic world, that hardcore boxing fan world. Do you know what I mean? Where like the man on the street goes, yeah, Conor Benn, yeah, what's that? Yeah, what happened? Oh, yeah, went for a full trial from an independent panel and got completely cleared. All right, fair enough. Oh, I like him. I liked his dad. Oh, he's exciting. Young man, he'll fight anyone. We like Conor Benn. Whereas the hardcore boxing community is more like, just kind of like stained with all the media and the talk sport and Simon. Yeah, it's like, but that's fine. Like, you know, as Conor has learned, you don't have to be loved by everybody. They just need to tune in. And they will tune in to watch Conor Benn fight. And they'll tune in especially to watch Conor Benn fight Chris Eubank Jr. And it's a great fight. You know, I sent Conor last night a clip that I watched of Chris Eubank hitting pads on the beach. I don't know if you saw it yesterday or outside his mansion in Dubai. Limited fighter. But we're coming up 2 weight classes. And that's what makes this a 50-50 fight. See, if this fight was at the same weight, Conor, in my opinion, he's such the superior fighter. And he's a young man. Chris Eubank's coming to the end. But because it's at middleweight, and because Conor is having to fight a much, much bigger man, it is a 50-50 fight. And it's going to be an absolute war. Conor Benn's going to come out the gates like an animal and just stick it on him. It'll be over in 6 rounds, this fight.
6 rounds?
Yeah, it'll be Hagler-Hearns, British style. And they will absolutely go at it, these two.
And would it be fair to say Conor's only making that jump up because of who this is? If he was called Chris Johnson, that 2-weight jump wouldn't be happening.
No. And, you know, I liken this a little bit. It's actually, Conor Benn made his professional debut on the same card as Kell Brook against Gennady Golovkin. Kell Brook was world champion at welterweight. There weren't any big fights out there for him. Let's just say outside of the ring, he was a bit temperamental. So the opportunity came up to fight Gennady Golovkin. Massive payday. Kell was a massive welterweight and really struggled to make 147. And I just kind of thought to myself, look, I'm going to bring it up to the team because I don't know where the big payday's coming from for Kell Brook. And I don't want to see this guy's career end by fighting another Jojo Dan or Kevin Bizier, whoever he's fighting at the time. So we made the decision to fight Gennady Golovkin. Unfortunately for Kell Brook, he come up against one of the greatest middleweights of our generation. And on that same card, Conor Benn debuted. And now, ironically, his biggest moment of his career, he's stepping up 2 divisions to fight a middleweight. And he's a welterweight. The good news for Conor Benn is Chris Eubank Jr. is no Gennady Golovkin. So, you know, you're right, though. We wouldn't move to middleweight and take a fight unless it was Chris Eubank Jr. I mean, look, he's going to make a fortune. And we're going to get blessed with a stadium fight that you're going to remember for a long, long time. Everyone wins.
And I wanted to ask, recently you said that you were privy to discussions for Canelo to fight Jake Paul. And you said that as far as you were concerned, you'd heard that was done. I just wondered, do you know why that fell apart or had you got
I mean, I never said I was privy to it. I just kind of, you can sometimes read between the lines. And at the same time, you know, heard a few things from broadcasters that this fight had been pitched to them, you know, and they were taking almost sort of offers on the deal for that fight. And you wouldn't do that if the fight wasn't agreed or there was an understanding between the two fighters to move forward with the fight. You don't pitch a fight when the other guy hasn't even agreed to the fight. So in my opinion, what happened was there were talks for that fight and everyone said, yes, let's move forward with that fight. Let's go to market with it. Let's look at the money and let's make it happen. And then I think His Excellency, who had already agreed Canelo against Crawford, probably turned around and went, hang on a minute, I've got the biggest fight in boxing and you're telling me you're going to fight Jake Paul a few months earlier. And then the other issue was Canelo Alvarez wanted to fight in May, but the Crawford fight's not till September. So I think His Excellency probably went back and said, look, don't worry about it. I'll give you a fight in May and then we'll go straight into Crawford. And then Canelo went, okay then. Because I think on one hand, Canelo is a boxing man. I don't think like he wakes up every morning dreaming of fighting Jake Paul. But he has also done everything in the sport. Like beaten virtually everyone in the sport and then someone comes along and says, there's 100 mil to beat up Jake Paul, do you fancy it? I mean, the answer's not really going to be no, is it? So I don't blame anyone in the situation. Obviously, from a business sense, it's just worked out that, Turkey wins. Don't mess with a lion, as he says, and it's a very interesting time for boxing in that respect. But hopefully we get to see Canelo Crawford, because I think that's a great matchup.
Agreed. And you mentioned Turki Alalshikh there. That is actually something I wanted to ask you about. I wondered, the battle lines seem gone. People who you never thought would work together are working together. Yourself being pictured on stage with guys like Frank Warren, Ben Shalom. Do you think boxing could possibly be heading towards a more UFC-style structure of almost one company under the Riyadh season banner, with maybe Turkey as the Dana White figure, if you like?
Yeah, maybe. I think at the moment, not everyone's on board. Most people are on board, but there's still people who try and fight. It's like I want to be like a renegade and fight the system. It's like Gervonta Davis. Look at all those guys flying over to Saudi. It's like, yeah, of course, because it's smart business. And at the moment, it suits everybody, right? So all of our fighters, everybody else's fighters, are just getting the most incredible opportunities and huge paydays to be, and they have to be in proper fights, tough fights, but the fights they want to be in. Boxing's winning. We're winning as a business. The fans are winning. Our fighters are winning. I don't understand the resistance from some people. Unless you're an idiot, unless your ego's out of control, or you're just getting terrible advice, why wouldn't you want to be a part of it? I've said so many times before, when His Excellency started, the first fight that he did was Fury and Ngannou. And I bad-mouthed that fight. And when I realised that His Excellency was the new player in town, I then started sliding in his DMs to no reply. And I was like, oh no. And eventually when we met, he brought it up, and he's like, I don't like what you said about Fury and Ngannou. And I said, look, I'll be honest with you, I'm never going to lie. I'm always going to speak my mind. And I didn't like the fight. Tyson Fury was the WBC World Heavyweight Champion, and he was fighting a 0-0 MMA fighter. I said, but now the fight's happened. I thought it was bloody brilliant. And I thought Ngannou won. And the event was incredible. So, fair dues. And he said to me, he said, look, you have to understand, we're a fast-moving train. Do you want to get on that train with us? Or do you want to stand at the platform and just wave us by? Do you know what I mean? And famously, I looked him in the eyes and just said, choo-choo, because I'm not an idiot. We're a big company. We got money. I ain't got that kind of money. I'm not going to do a show and lose tens of millions of dollars on a show. No thanks. We're trying to make sure we make money every show. So, but if I can be part of something and my fighters can benefit and we can benefit as a business and the sport can see the kind of fights that are going to continue to grow the sport, yeah, why not? Wouldn't you want to do it? So I don't know where it's going. He's doubling down on everything at the moment. And the thing is, whether I liked him or not, I'm always going to do good business. But I like him. And he makes me laugh. And his energy for the sport is incredible. And he's very smart. It's not like he's just some bloke with a load of money that has no idea what he's doing. He's very smart, very strategic. And he loves boxing. Loves it. He reminds me in some ways of me. He's up all day and all night working on boxing. Same. So, I'm enjoying it. It's probably the most, and even like you said, it probably even would call it a friendship with Frank Warren. Look, when he banged us together, our heads together, he sort of said, guys, I don't want it, and it was like, oh God, all right, going to have to work with Frank Warren here, but, it's for the good of the boxing and for the fighters, and we're going to make money, so let's just do it. That evolved into still rivals, but now we're on the same platform with the Zone, and we have dinner, and we'll have a bottle of wine, and we'll talk, Shalom even, we're not socially not in that same position, but we're doing the Benn-Eubank fight together. The phone line, we speak to each other most days. Those lines of communication. And, rivalry has to exist. I still want to spank Frank and spank Ben, but it's not toxic anymore, And it's drains you less, if I'm honest, because the other stuff, for 15 years I fought with Warren. And every day was a battle, you know, interviews, legal letters. It's like, Frank's one of the great grinders. He'll grind you down, and he's like, and you got to have the cojones and the battery to just not be denied. And that just, but it takes a lot out of you, you know? And now we're kind of like, it's like to come through that. So yeah, it's pretty good times.
It is good times, and there's a card on the horizon. You've called it, and I think you're right, the greatest boxing card ever assembled. And if we sat here and went through every fight and how good each fight was, we'd probably be here until the card started. Yeah. So we're not going to do that. But I would like to start at the top. It's the rematch that we all want to see. Artur Beterbiev, Dimitri Bivol. Just talk us through why that is such a special fight.
I mean, anyone that saw the first fight, like, it's one of my favourite fights all time to watch live and up close, because you got two complete generational greats fighting each other, like in the most intriguing matchup. I thought Dimitri Bivol won. Obviously, he didn't. Most people thought he did, I think, of the people watching. But he's got to do a little bit more this time. And it's just everything in the sport. It's the undisputed championship at light heavyweight. Two tremendous fighters on what you said is, you know, the greatest fight card that's ever been assembled.
And another fight on that one that stands out for me, I mean, we've covered the heavyweight title, but Shakur Stevenson, interestingly going in against Floyd Schofield. And that first name is what brings me onto it, because a lot of people make the Floyd Mayweather comparison with Shakur Stevenson. I want to know from you, do you think that's where his ceiling is? He's already a 3-weight world champion. Do you see him maybe being able to emulate Floyd long term?
Yeah, I mean, this kid lives boxing. Like, so, you know, the whole thing with like him, Keyshawn, Terence Crawford, even Mayweather, those kind of guys, what they do is they turn up in a gym, they train, they spar, they finish, they warm down, they stay in the gym. They might shower and then go back to, but they live like, and then they'll watch 15 rounds of sparring, someone else on another ring. Then they'll go over to the other ring and watch some kid on the pads. Do you know what I mean? They're complete and utter boxing junkies. Like, they're just, and Shakur is so special, so talented as a fighter. And like, sometimes, you know, people say, oh, you know, he needs to be a little bit more aggressive. And that will come when you fight someone that is aggressive. And someone that comes to survive against Shakur, like someone that would come to survive against Floyd, you're never going to see a classic. The elite fighters, like for me, Shakur against Gervonta Davis is the fight. Like, that is one of the great American fights. And Schofield is a good young fighter who, you know, you have to respect the fact that he's taking the challenge. I don't think he'll have enough for Shakur. But if you want to clutch straws, Shakur's coming back from a big hand operation. He's been a bit inactive, but he's a special fighter. 28 years old, 3-division world champion. Not even been in anything like a tough fight yet. He's done that with absolute ease. And, you know, I believe he's a generational great.
And just for my final question, I'm going to pivot slightly away from the boxing onto the darts. Luke Littler, where does it end? He's got a stadium named after him now. He's like, this kid's not even out of his teens. Just unreal ceiling on him, not just as a darts player, but as a British sporting superstar. Just talk me through your relationship with Luke and just what it's been like to watch his rise.
Yeah, I don't know Luke that well, to be honest with you. I mean, we've exchanged messages and stuff like that. And I think the most fascinating thing about Luke is how he's managed to keep his head, to keep performing at the highest level, and also do the right things. You know, like how many plonkers can sometimes associate themselves or start getting involved in athlete circles where it's like, no, what you want to do is you want to do this, and you want, you know, he's got a really good team of people around him, which is like so important for any big name. Very close relationship, obviously, with his dad, right? And his family, his mum and everybody, who his dad's done a brilliant job to nurture him into the competitor that he is today. You know, the management, like no one's, like they're just focused. For him, it's all about the darts, right? It's all about the performance, what we said earlier. He's making a fortune. And he will continue to make more and more and more money, especially when, which is inevitable, the prize money continues to go up for the PDC. But I just find it so fascinating. Like, I watched him last night in the Premier League, you know, like, it's like, he's also a showman, you know? So, like, he gets the big fish, the 170, you know, he turns around to the crowd. You know, like, it's like I just think he's perfect in every way. And the reason that he's perfect is because he lives to compete and he lives to play, and everything else just follows on. But as long as you can stay focused on that and you're as good as he is, everything else comes with it. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, he's ceiling. He's nowhere near. I mean, he is, and I've said it before, I think right now, one of the most recognisable individuals in Britain. Like, forget even sport. Like, you talk about people walking down the street. I mean, obviously you've got AJ, Fury, some of the big name footballers. But outside of that, right, take him football and a couple of people in boxing, probably AJ and Fury, that's it. Tell me another sport where someone would like instantly recognise someone. I mean, a tennis player, you know, like Andy Murray, you know. But that's the levels that you're talking about. He's an absolute superstar. And he came second in BBC Sports Personality of the Year, which he should have won. But that just shows you also, the darts thing's funny because people still look at darts. Like, I think even Brits don't quite understand how big darts is. Like, I work in boxing. When I was at Sky, darts would outperform boxing 4 or 5 times in terms of viewership, right? Every show they're doing, Premier League darts a good example, sold out, right? 8,000, 10,000, 12,000 every single Thursday. You know, I mean, a good boxing night would do 4,000 or 5,000 live crowd. Still a great crowd. But darts is filling every arena like that, all over the country.
The days on end
It's unbelievable. And by the way, and they're all sold out in the first day. Like, you can't get a ticket for the World Championship. It's 95,000 tickets for the entire session, all gone within an hour. Like, it really is the hottest sport in town. And it's just the most unique experience. If you've never been, like, when you walk around the corner and you go into an arena that's staging darts, you just go, what on earth is going on here?
It's just a guy dressed as a banana.
Exactly.
There, like everything.
But what a night. And what, like, in a world that can be quite miserable, and, you know, a country that can be a little bit shit at sometimes, and poxy weather and everything, it's like a night at the darts just solves everything. You know, it just, you look around, you go, everyone's happy. You know, and it's just so unique as a sport.
Yeah, I think there's something intoxicating about that. I feel the same about a big boxing night, and I just want to say, best of luck Saturday for the Catterall card. It's going to be fantastic. I mean, from top to bottom, looking forward to that one. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks a lot.